What's up,
Is
world?
this
It
thing
is
on?
it's Keys to the Streets. Back with our next episode. What is this? Episode 9. We are moving right along, and I love that for us.
Right? Look at
Yay.
us.
I'm your host, Bobby Penn, and I'm here with my girl, Key. Hey, Key.
Hey, girl. Hey.
How's it going?
It's going busy. I feel like story of our lives as of late. But yeah, we rolling. Got things going in Austin. Well, I think I'm in Houston. Been talking about y'all in Houston offline. But yeah, ready to get into it.
I know that's right. Okay. Well, speaking of Houston, you helped pull the play and got us tickets to go to the Millennium Tour. I hate that you couldn't join us, but I really did have a ball. So thank you, girl.
Womp womp womp. Yes. I was kind of in my feels because I didn't get to go, but Bobby represented. So as long as we were there, I was with you in spirit, girl. And the Harlem Shake was on point. I love the outfit. Like so cute.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I got my neighbor who she's a woman, but she dresses masculine. I was like, I need you to style me Y2K vibes. And she came down with a huge bag of like items, accessories, the whole nine. So everything that I wore, including the socks, belonged to her. So shout out to Erica Johnson. She's actually a physical therapist here in Houston. But she's still styling on the side. So yeah, I
Okay.
had a ball. I invited a friend. As you saw, we had a little dance off. So people on TikTok and Instagram are laughing at that or whatever. So it was a really good time. I do just want to mention that some of our Houston legends came out. Bow Wow actually brought out some special guests. You know how artists do that in different cities.
Of
So we
course.
had Kurt Cobain's come out first, and he did "Drink in My Cup." And then we also had Paul Wall come out, still tipping off fofos.
Okay. All
Yeah,
the Negro spirituals. Thank
no,
you.
quite literally, like the crowd went
Totally missed
crazy.
out.
I know, I'm sorry, baby.
But
And
no,
then
I love that. Yes.
yes, Trey the Truth came out as well. And you know, he had to hold it down. Bow Wow gave him his credit for all of the great work that he does in the community, looking out for people who are financially facing hardship. When we have storms, he goes out and saves people. So that was really nice. Trey Songz also bought out Lil Flip and he did Sunshine. So, you know, the ladies went crazy for that.
Of course.
And
Oh,
something
so
else that
much,
I
so much nostalgia.
oh my gosh, like for real, like I really was transported back to a special like when life was much more simple.
Simpler
Um
times.
and when we were a lot smaller, okay, people were really going in on Omarion and his current body state. And not to feel like body shaming, we really need to do away with that, especially for men. Men feel it just like we do as women. But I did notice that the Houston show, the part where Omarion usually dances topless, he kept his wife beater on. So did y'all bully him about his man boobs? That ain't right.
Oh wow. I hate to hear that. Did you see it? Like that's so
You try to fight the
sad.
laugh, kid. Don't fight the laugh. Listen,
No,
he that
not
man
even
know he
that. Cause
fine.
I'm like, we all getting old. We all ain't spring chickens no more. So how y'all do
Okay.
that man like that? Like he really got an ice box now where his heart used to be. Y'all wrong.
For real, for real. So how was your weekend in Austin?
It was good. It was pretty chill for the most part. Of course, holding it down here, working on some art shows. I'm writing something up for the Chronicle on covering some art shows here. So was just kind of doing some research, checking some out. Shout out to Women in Their Work. Shout out to Mass Gallery. Of course, shout out to the George Washington Carver Museum, the African American Museum, because Moini has an amazing show going right now. So, all things art, I'm going to keep my eyes on and ears on for sure. So, yeah, that was my weekend for the most part.
Okay, love it. Doing it for the artist. Now, speaking of artists, hopefully you aren't working with any artists who are fraudulent. Sean
Girl.
Kingston and his mama
Yeah.
found
Um,
guilty of wire fraud.
I we joked about me being a psychic before, but you remember when I told you that my friend dated Sean Kingston and their situation was a little fraudulent too. So I gotta be
Ooh,
honest. This wasn't, I'm
no
not surprised.
way. You're way too beautiful,
Yeah.
girl, to
Yeah.
get caught up in this. Okay, so here's the tea. If you aren't aware, Sean Kingston and his mother were found guilty on 5 counts of wire fraud. I think one was actually completed and then 5 were attempted, where they were basically printing false documents saying that they were going to pay for luxury goods, jewelry, exotic cars, you name it. And the crazy thing is the defense for Sean Kingston, the mama basically was willing to take the rap for him, right? And the argument that the lawyer came up with was that in Sean Kingston's mind, he's still a child and he didn't know what he was doing. So the judges in Florida was like, I ain't trying to hear all that. Clearly, that's a grown man. I mean, clearly, this is a grown man. So, yeah, wishing them well.
Clearly.
Trying to keep up those appearances.
Right.
I know we both work behind the scenes with artists, you in a different capacity. Like, what does it mean to be keeping up appearances and going to such lengths to do so?
I mean, honestly, like, yeah, I was on the scene in Atlanta. I worked in some just on some PR teams, and you get a lot of that in Atlanta and Miami. Miami is like scammer central. If you know, you know. So I've like, this isn't new to me for a couple reasons. I joked about dating a friend of mine, but also like Sean Kingston has been known for getting people on like bad watches and stuff like. So I'm like, this isn't new. I'm like, he was in the news maybe a few years ago for getting caught up in giving someone like counterfeit money or something for a watch, I thought. So it was some type of good or service. And so, yeah, that's why I thought he was just kind of relegated to Miami because people knew what type of time he was on. But yeah, it's unfortunate because people, you go from having all this fame, and I've always found it interesting how rich people pay for even less. Like their friends for Christmas, they gift each other cars, they gift each other Rolexes. Like you couldn't donate, like y'all already rich, And so I think it's you keeping up with the Joneses when you no longer are in those crowds and things like that. You almost feel compelled to do even more to show that you're still putting on, that you're still doing things, especially coming from a career of, he kind of went in that R&B pop phase. So he wasn't just, that was at the rise of us, the Afro beats, the everything, and kind of more of that music fusion. And so, yeah, I think it's unfortunate that's what's going on, but you're a grown man, like, and mom is sad too, because he's a grown man, but you raised him. So what we gonna say?
And clearly was using his name. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on. That was us dipping our toes in the entertainment space. Let's talk local. What is coming up? What's going on in Austin?
Yes. So recently I was actually on the radio. I was on the Traffic Jam, which is Chaz's show. Chaz is one of the leaders of Austin Justice Coalition, which is a social justice, just organization, nonprofit here. And so he's known to be an activist or what have you. But he also, of course, does radio. And so he's, sometimes on the scene, hosting events and things like that. He recently hosted this the baby appearance. And so basically there was this event at a Black owned restaurant called Tater Q, and Tater Q there's not a lot of Black owned restaurants here in Austin, like let's say that. And basically some claims came out that they were being harassed by law enforcement, and they're located in Pflugerville, which is basically the Black area now, or it has a large Black population. A lot of Black people who were displaced from Austin, outpriced from Austin, have moved to Pflugerville. And so it's very close in proximity. They even, cross over and overlap in jurisdiction in some places. And so basically, some of the Black business owners and some of the patrons came out and said that they were being harassed in the parking lot. And someone, Chaz created a petition. And so he created a petition and people started sharing it. And me always kind of, standing alone, and I'm going to, have some questions. I asked like if they had followed up with city council. I asked if they had made any formal complaints or anything like that. And that just kind of started off this wildfire of talking about activism and what activism looks like. And And yeah, it caused a lot of discourse in the community. And so Chaz recently had me on his show to talk about that discourse and just my perspective of activism. I think people look at activism oftentimes in one way. And I talked about how activism, or how, sometimes protesting and things like that, is very reactionary. And I think it's a component of activism, but I think activism, it should be multifaceted. You're usually anti and kind of, like you're the little guy. So oftentimes your strategy has to be multifaceted in order to have a little bit of an impact, if anything. And so those were, some of the things that came up. But I also addressed accountability with the business. And I said, as Black business owners, we also got to do better. We know how
Yeah.
covert racism is and anti-Blackness is in Austin. They very friendly, girl, but that's because they'll get you in the systems and the policy. Like, yeah, we'll buy, we cool. We'll put a sign of Black Lives Matter outside our house, but we also gonna move in your neighborhood, buy a $5 million home next to $150,000 home, raise your property taxes, and act like we've not impacted your community negatively. So I think with that, I tend to look at proactive ways of activism. I also look at financial ways of activism. I'm like, where's the money? Because you can't fight nothing broke. So I'm always looking at how do we build, financial systems? How do we get funding? How do we get support in order to be, my type of activist? So I think we talked about leadership and a lot of different things, but again, in talking about Tater Q and Crab King specifically, and being in Pflugerville, I said we got to be honest in looking at our capacity of the restaurants and if they need security. Recently, that like these are two Black businesses that share a parking lot with other businesses, and recently there was a shooting there, and so I'm like, we got to be honest in where the increased awareness has come from. Like, y'all were there for 2 years before and y'all are saying it's harassment, and I'm hearing you, but let's also put the facts together and let's involve city council. Let's now create a paper trail. Let's start contacting officials. Let's look at this multi-pronged, contact the news, ask for an investigation. And so yeah, I would just say with that, with anybody, when you think of activism, think of how maybe you can contribute to it, because I think as Black people, activism runs in our blood. I think we're always oftentimes distracted by looking for a leader when we've done enough in our lives, in our community, to be our own leaders and to open doors for others. So I feel like we should not be absolved of that responsibility. If you of the culture and in the culture, you got a responsibility to do more for someone else.
Fully agreed. I love that. And I'll even go so far as to add to that, join forces. Maybe you don't know how to use your talents and skills, but you're passionate about a certain cause. Then find the person that's already doing it and join forces. So I agree. We cannot sit back and not help, and definitely not contribute to our demise and our downfall. So love that. Now, I do want to shift gears to Houston. This weekend, our University of Houston Cougars made it to the Final Four. So the city is really excited about that. The boys are headed to...
Isn't UT in it too? I'm like, I went to Baylor, so I don't keep up with UT sports. But if I remember correctly, I think the women actually went to Final Four.
Okay. I am not sure about that. I think for the guys,
let me look
it's Florida. Don't start me to lying. But I was prepared to read just this little thing about Houston real quick. So on Sunday, what was that? March 30th? March 31st? March 30th? In the Elite Eight, the University of Houston showed Tennessee and the SEC that Big 12 can still play the role of bully. All right. Houston threw a defensive haymaker in the first half and rendered Tennessee's offense overwhelmed and ineffective. All right, for a 69-50 win. So really excited about that. I'm scrolling through this article on ESPN to see.
Shout out to our cities though, because I just checked. UT women, they're going to Final Four. They beat TCU, which is crazy because I'm like, that is literally just Central Texas. Like we balling right now. Like we in there.
All right, no March Madness, no future. Yes. All right. So I'm really excited. I've been excited all week to talk to our special guest. So let's go ahead and cue up this intro so we can get to it. This is where I want all of my, particularly women in business, real estate professionals, entrepreneurs, girl bosses, reality TV lovers. Tune in. Here's where you want to turn up the radio. All right.
Hey, ladies.
Hey, Nicole.
Oh, the Texas is really coming out. Hey, ladies.
Hey, y'all. I love when y'all say that. Hey, y'all. I'm trying to make
Well, welcome to the show. Thank you again for making time for us. And I appreciate Bobby just even making the connection because, yeah, like I said, we connected offline. I didn't realize, that we had some mutual connections. And so
Absolutely,
can you just, and I'm guessing like oftentimes when I've talked to real estate agents and people who have been in real estate, they talk so much about the importance of networking and building their community. And so could you talk a little bit about how maybe you've leveraged that for the success that you've had now?
No, absolutely. Like, the saying your network is your net worth is such a true statement. And just being able to, oftentimes we think we have to go like meet new people and foster new people and try to get new business. Let's focus on the people that we know, and let's focus. Number one, focus on the network that you already have and then leverage their network. And I think that's the part where we get it wrong. Again, like I said, we exhaust ourselves trying to just create these whole new networks when you have so much value in the networks that you already have, and then leveraging the networks of the people that you are, the circles that you already are in, so, but then in terms of like, where networking has gotten me in my real estate career, oh my God, like I was recently just featured in a Houston magazine for selling one of the top 10 most expensive homes in Houston in February. And that was, thank you. And that business solely came from my network. And it's, the piece I think that a lot of people miss is the value aspect, right? How do you bring value to people, right? That's how you really strengthen your network, is being a valuable resource and bringing value to them, right? And so that deal came from my network. And so those are the type of deals that honestly, I don't feel like Black women in real estate get too often, unfortunately. But just being able to leverage my network to create those opportunities for myself has been amazing. And it really has been, life altering and life changing in my real estate business and career.
Absolutely. Because relationship building is just so important. And I think oftentimes it's a lost art. Like very few, like people are so transactional now. And so having that long-term rapport with somebody, you'd be surprised with, like, people have you in conversations in rooms. You're like, and will call you up. So I can't imagine how often that probably happens for you with people looking for a house and moving around often.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm so grateful for it, right? Because there was a point in time when nobody was saying my name in any room, So yes,
and what changed that? Like, could you talk about? Because I know you had a strategy. Because I'm like, to go from engineers are the most analytical, calculated when planning things. So please, like, talk about the leap in the change and the pivot.
You know what? I always liked the technical corporate life, right? But I got to a point to where I was really, really bored with it. And I felt like that, hey, you know what? I'm just sitting here making this company rich, and I know my impact is greater. I can touch so many people. I have a gift that I can share with the world, and so I got to the point where I had kind of got bored, and I've always had a real estate license, right? So I actually got into real estate not to be a realtor, not to be a real estate, to be a real estate professional that service buyers and sellers. My sole purpose for getting a real estate license was to be able just to invest for myself, right? But as I grew in my corporate career, I got bored and I got tired of playing the corporate game. I was exhausted with playing the corporate game. I mean, you mean to tell me I got to go and I got to do all this only to get a 5% bonus increase? You know,
Yeah.
so I got
I love the lean in. She was like, "Are you feeling me though?"
I'm telling you, no, seriously, like look at the skill set and the knowledge of people that make these Fortune 500 companies go around, right? And in my opinion, they do a great job, but they're not always valued, you know, the way that they should be. And they're not always giving the opportunities that they are striving every day to get in those corporate careers. And your fate is at in the hands of somebody else. The company needs to lay off people. It might just be you. You know, and sometimes those decisions are made just by, oh, company shares are down. We're letting go of half the company. You know, those aren't calculated decisions. Sometimes they're just made, you know, next week we got to let go half the company, keep our doors open. So I also bored. I was again tired of playing the corporate game. And then I didn't want my destiny to be in the fate of someone else's hands. Right. So what happened is I said, I'm going to start taking this real estate stuff serious. Right. I had a whole real estate license for like 7 years before I took it serious. I was like, I'm going to start taking this real estate stuff serious. Right. And I'm going to put myself out there as much as I can. And I'm going to give the most value possible. Right. But honestly, real estate was a hobby. So I maybe had like sold a couple of houses a month. So I didn't have this big database. I wasn't known for being a realtor. So I was like, I'm just going to put myself out there on social media, and I'm going to give the most value that I possibly can. And what I learned is being valuable to people. Oh my God, it will be reciprocated tenfold. Wow. You want business? Give value, solve people's problems, right? And so that's what I did, guys. And here I am 5 years later. So me and my cousin, Jamisha, who you guys see on the show, she's the broker of the brokerage that we created going on 6 years now, right? But one day I just wanted to sell real estate. And one day she woke up and was like, you know what, we're going to open up a real estate brokerage. And I'm like, okay. So I always tell the story that I was voluntold, right? But in actuality, we had always been working in real estate as partners in real estate, our entire real estate career. My grandmother gave us the money to go to real estate school in 2012, right? So we had always been working in it, even though we did have corporate jobs and things like that. And I'm so grateful that she did that and said that, right? And kind of forced me to say, hey, we're going to open this real estate brokerage, because what people don't know and what people have not seen about us is that the road hasn't always been easy. You know, we've experienced everything that you can think of: racism, you know, sexism, you know, all of those things. Racism from our own broker. There was a broker that called us Monique and Unique that he said, you guys look like the ladies off Babs.
Wow. The audacity,
right? So we got to the point where we're like, we're going to find another brokerage. This is not working. Yeah. Got to looking. And like, we just can't find anything that feels like us, like that values the things that we value, that has core values the way that we do. That it just, you know, act and live their lives as people first, you know, the way that we would. So she was like, we're going to open up our own brokerage.
Right.
Like, okay. Yeah. And so that's the thing, you know, if you can't find it, create it. And that's exactly what we did.
I love that. Now, I'm glad you led us into that with you and your sister cousins. The show, we get to go behind the scenes and follow your journey. Yeah. How has the dynamic of being so close with your cousins helped you relate to women and enrich your women empowerment stance?
Yeah, so it honestly, it has helped me understand that, you know, not every woman is catty. And, you know, there are women out here that want to cheer each other on and want you to succeed, you know, and I guess that was kind of just embedded in us. You know, our grandmother was like, you know, you support your family is everything. You support your family. You know, you love your family. You show up for your family. So, you know, honestly, kind of like having the circle of my sisters and cousins, you know, it did teach me early on that women can be supportive and cheer one another on, you know, and not be catty and envious and things like that. You know, so I mean, it's been actually a true blessing to me because, like I said, it showed me women in a different light.
It's so inspiring. Key and I were talking about this before recording today's show, and it's just funny how, I don't know if every ethnicity is like this, but how close we can be to our cousins. So it's just nice to see your family really embrace that and build a business, a legacy that will live on, especially at the encouragement and support of your grandmother. So yeah, salute to you all for that.
Thank you.
Now we got to get into this HBCU business. Go ahead, Key.
Oh yeah, I was just like, shout out to your grandmother, because I think that's not only instilling the principles of family, but also in legacy and wealth building. So for her to invest in y'all, like of course, I know y'all had high hopes and belief, but I'm like, did you see yourself here? Like on reality TV, like one of the top sellers, like, come on, Granny saw it.
Yeah.
You know what? That is so true, right? Because we were just taught to get up and work hard, and you will reap what you sow through hard work and determination and consistency and never giving up, right? But I never thought I would reap it like this,
Yeah.
I'm grateful, right? And sometimes
Shout out to her planting those seeds.
Yeah, but it was her planting those seeds. I watched her, like I've told people before. People were like, "Why you get up so early?" I'm like, "Cause my grandmother got up early. She used to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. When we would spend the night at her house, she would be the first one up, getting ready to go to her businesses and things like that. I saw that, and I emulate that. Yeah.
Oh man. That's such a blessing. Such a blessing. So I was going to ask about HBCUs. You went to PV.
The PV University.
Excuse me, the PV. Yeah. So how would you say your HBCU has shaped you and how you approach business?
Oh my goodness. So going to Prairie View has taught me to be fearless and relentless, and that I can conquer and do any and everything. And I didn't have that confidence before I went.
Wow.
I did not have that confidence before I went. I know a lot of people think that HBCUs are like party schools and all this stuff, but let me tell you this: every school is a party school. But I saw a lot of Black people in leadership. I saw a lot of Black people doing good things. I saw a lot of Black people, even at our age, even when the county down there didn't want Prairie View students to vote, fighting for our rights. You know what I'm saying? And so like that instilled to me like, hey, we can do anything. We literally can do anything. And so like, I'm just so proud that I went there because like I said, it taught me, I saw another side of Black people that I did not see beforehand. I went to a mixed school and things like that, but like intelligent Black people doing their thing, really setting themselves up for success and really focusing on, what it takes to, just do the right things, like that. I'm like, hey, honey, we can do it all. Let me tell y'all something. The day President Obama won to be a student at Prairie View A&M University,
y'all went up.
That we went up, but it was a sense of pride. You know what I'm saying? I've never been anywhere where I've been so proud to be a Black person in America than at Prairie View.
Wow. Meanwhile, we were at Baylor fighting for our lives.
like unity.
But no, seriously, it was a totally different experience. But of course, not to get into the debate of PWIs and HBCUs, but I will say I have friends who went to HBCUs, and I agree. I feel like going to an HBCU is like your first time, like going to Atlanta. Like you're like, oh my God, this is Wakanda. Like it's literally, you look you see Black entrepreneurship, you see Black leadership, you see Black excellence. And Absolutely. So shout out to the HBCUs continuing, because let's be honest, like Baylor, they called it the Harvard of the South, and it was very, very white. And the academics that part was easy. It was the lack of community. It was some of those things that made it very hard at times. And that's where, I met Angie B, but I met Angela. It was like the Black community, we clung to each other. Yeah. And so like you partied, like you said, you partied everywhere. We were the largest Baptist university, and everything ended at 9. Like everything closed at 9. We was so messed up because what else was there to do? Like in Waco, Texas. So absolutely. But shout out to the HBCUs, because also I want to touch on how they do so much with a little. Like and continue, because in comparison to the PWIs and the funding and the grants and the support,
that seems to be still getting cut to this day,
Absolutely.
And we've always made a way.
And still producing cream of the crop, obviously. Obviously.
Cream of the crop, and always made a way. That's one thing we're gonna do as a community. We're gonna push through and we're gonna figure it out, and not let barriers like what's going on today stop us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great question, Lauren. You be on.
I try a little bit. Well, Nicole, we thank you so much for coming by and stopping with us. Is there anything we need to keep up with that we need to know, and make sure you for sure tell us where to follow you on social media?
Absolutely. So
Right? Anything we need to watch? Wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
Oh, I don't know. You know, we still working on being very transparent. We're still working on it. Like, that's the number one question I've been getting asked. Like, is the show coming back? Is the show coming back? It's still a lot of talks and things in the work. So I don't have a definite yes or no, to be honest. And I wish I had more information, but y'all know how these production companies and networks are. I feel like they try to keep you in the dark a little bit so that when they do come back, you're not prepared for them.
Okay.
Seriously, so whatever's going on at that time, they want to catch that raw, authentic, whatever is going on in your life. So I think they're kind of doing that to us a little bit, but I don't know. I wish I had more.
No worries at all. When you do know, let us know so we can promote, so we can do all the things and share and everything.
You have our
support.
Yes,
in the meantime, where can we find you? Where can
you can find me on pretty much all the major social media platforms that exist: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. I am Mrs. MRSNIKKI Handy on most of those platforms, or if you search Nicole Handy, the easiest way to find me, honestly, guys, is just Google Nicole Handy Houston. I will come up everywhere.
Google me.
She said Google me, baby.
Did that sound big-headed? Like, Google me.
No.
Not at all. You've done the work, man. What we
Absolutely.
talking about?
Thank you. Thank you. But I also want to also recognize my brokerage, Braden Real Estate Group, here in Houston too, because we are a collective of mostly Black and women realtors. We have some men. We love our men too, but we're mostly Black and women realtors out here actively working to service buyers and sellers and get people in homes and allow them to create their generational wealth here in the Houston area. So you can look us up as well. Braden Real Estate Group. Our website is bradenregroup.com. But again, it's not too many things that we don't service. We are very big on generational wealth. So we do want to get as many people in homes as possible and make that happen for them.
There it is. Home ownership is tangible. Make sure you check in with Nicole and her team. Thank you again so much for stopping by and kicking it with us for a little bit. We're definitely going to have you back, so no worries.
Thank you, ladies. I love this. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for the support and best of luck. We can't wait to check in.
Y'all somebody call Carlos at Oprah and tell them we need it.
We got him on the line right now, girl. Bring it back. Family Empire.
Thanks, ladies. Y'all have a
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
All right.
It's nothing like a pretty girl with pretty energy. I just feel so inspired.
Right. Corporate baddies. I love it.
Period. It's nothing we can't do. So that was a really great conversation. And so inspired, like we said, to continue legacy building. That's what we stand on. You and I clearly represent that. Every show we are talking about how we're helping others and just being mindful. So it was nice to have her on.
Yes, y'all check in with Nicole Handy. I think it's so important, especially now. I think the climate in like home buying is, things are up in the air. So I think having someone who knows what your community needs, what your community faces, what your family may need, and know some extra resources. That's the support. That's the type of realtor you want. So shout out to Braden Real Estate.
Yes. Now, speaking of finances and home ownership and money and helping the community, we got to take a pause and quickly talk about the Black church. Just a little bit, quick little pivot. So Pastor Marvin Sapp has been making headlines for the last week or so regarding an offering call or a request for donations. It's being worded very differently in different places. It rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And he did speak out on Monday on the Ricky Smiley morning show, addressing some of the backlash, and even his response has turned a few people off. So just to kind of add some context to that, the original incident, he asked people to donate or sow a seed is the language he used, to sow a seed of at least $20. The people, if it was 1,000 people in person and 1,000 people watching online, if each of those groups donated $20 each, they would have $40,000. And then he turned around and asked for the clergy, the other ministers who were on the pulpit with him, to give $100 each. And again, it wasn't even just that he asked for the donations, but I think it was the very what's the word? He used the word stern, passionate way that he asked the ushers to close the door. I think that's what really bothered people and turned people off and had them saying, you know what I mean? Listen, that you're holding people hostage and you can't do that. So saying that again, he went on Ricky Smiley. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Mans had him up there like Game of Thrones, like Hodor, telling them to hold the door. I cannot.
Listen, Ayana said close them doors first, okay? And then he told you to be quiet as you brought the money up there. But and I don't even know if people saw all of this. There was maybe a 15-second clip that really went viral, but the full service is online if anybody wants to dig deeper. And for sure, for 9 minutes, the offering went on. And he started off kind of coercing the congregation by saying, if you received anything from the word, raise your hand. So that's putting people in the spot. Then he went so far as to say, and if you didn't raise your hand, every word ain't for everybody. So he kind of like questioned your holiness and maybe even your intellect. Then he went on to add, if you received anything from the word, you owe the Lord for receiving that word. And that's when he asked for this large sum. I'm also under the impression, I wasn't there, but I'm also under the impression that this was not the first offering in that particular service as well. So he had already taken offering, and then he asked for more money so that the convention that he was speaking at could meet their quota. So anyway, like I said, the internet went crazy. People were online saying it never would have paid it. They were pulling clips from First Sunday. I actually happened to watch Don't Be a Menace, the Wayans Brother movies from the 90s. In the scene when they were in church and the preacher was like, take the correction plate around there. Go around there. And he was like, don't ask no questions. Right. So it just felt every stereotype, every caricature of the Black church, he actually did in real life. And we have to acknowledge that.
I mean,
and I feel like that's where
he definitely gave me Creflo Dollar vibes. Like it definitely took me back to, okay, so you need a private jet. What are we doing?
What's the 40,000 for? What's it for?
Yeah.
And you up there with the Audemars with the AP on your wrist.
Iced out. Plain Jane.
So again, and this is where he rubbed people the wrong way, girl. So he gets on the Ricky Smiley show and then he plays victim. So the only thing he apologized for is maybe speaking too harshly to the ushers. That's literally all he owned up to. Everything else was just, oh, you guys don't understand. And church is a business. And, you know, it wasn't even at my church. That wasn't even my congregation. Like that makes it better.
Yeah.
And then
these new age churches are wild. Like I have never, back in the Sunday school where I never heard somebody say church is a business, you know, but I mean, it is a business. Absolutely. And I think, you know, times have changed and it's just, I went to Baylor. I mentioned it before, largest Baptist university in the world. And I went there to try and get closer to God and probably felt my furthest there. I just saw so many different perspectives, I think, of what God meant to people. And at a place like that, where there were Branch Davidians and a whole cult and stuff, like, I think people, you know, was kind of heightened as well. So I think, you know, my last like super level is like, I want to be as audacious as like a mother of a church, like, because the way
baby
they are without any impunity, like they are no issue, like perfect. Because
the church mother's gonna tell you when your skirt is too short, they gonna make you come to the church. If you pregnant out of wedlock, if you was caught on the streets, they gonna let everybody know that they praying for you, and all the criminal activity, whatever you're doing wrong, is gonna be on blast. So
yeah, I really wonder,
the church
like,
mothers get away.
What was the community's expectation though? Because I'm like, this old school church, like let's be honest, like we still are dealing with some of the ramifications of that. And I think that has been the issue with oftentimes millennials and you know, younger with the church. I represented a lot of different clients, and I actually had a church come to me and ask me why did I feel like, you know, they had a disconnect with people my age and younger. And I was like, you know, I think maybe the church just doesn't necessarily understand. All right. And he said, what is there to understand? What don't you understand about the Bible? The Bible ain't changed. I said, yes, sir, you're absolutely right. And in that moment, I knew exactly, you know, what the disconnect was, and that it was going to probably continue to stay that way. And so, yeah, I think we also got to be honest about our expectations. And I also just, I tend to be, maybe I'm a little bit more hypercritical, but I always just will look at how I feel like the church has sometimes failed Black women when it comes to love, like just life. Like, you know, I just think it sometimes it sets us up for, you know, not necessarily the best situations of how reality is. There's how you're raised in the church, and then there's a church girl being released upon the world, and it's not the same.
So I wasn't even gonna go in this direction, but I was watching Yanni. She's a YouTuber, popular YouTuber, and she was sharing very similar thoughts in how she doesn't participate in religion right now. Not that she doesn't believe in anything, but in terms of organized religion, she does not participate, and she feels that it's because it's really just created to put women in their place, whether we're talking Christianity or even in the Muslim culture. And what she pointed to justify what she was saying is Brittany Renner now dating Kevin Gates, and how Kevin Gates wants this super holy woman that's covered up from head to toe. Brittany had to convert for him, but in his music, in his character, what he talks about in interviews, how he acts and behaves, it does not line up with the Quran either. So Absolutely. It was just an interesting thought, and I just wanted to add that. Right, I'm not saying that I 100% fall in line with what Yanni was saying, but I think that what you made, the observation that you made, and that she also said, there's validity to that as well.
Yeah, and I want to continue on that just because it's funny. I recently had a similar conversation when a video was posted, and it was this woman basically saying you will lose a good man being entitled and not initiating the affection he deserves. And basically men were like, you know, women aren't the prize, all of this. I wasn't listening to that. But what I said was, I agree. And I said, I blame the church, though. I said it shelters and confines women with guilt and shame and pushes women so focused on getting a man, but no one talks about how to keep them. It raises women like they are the catch, but gives little to no insight on how to remain kept. So women raised up to be the catch all their life get caught. Now what? They've been indoctrinated to be objectified by men, and that's all they know. And now they're in the relationship like I'm the prize, and people act surprised. Like,
woo. Bars. You was spitting. And I again, I didn't hear you say this part, and it doesn't hold men to the same standards.
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
He who finds a wife finds a good thing, but how are you a husband? Do you know how to be a husband? Have you been taught to be a husband? What are the guidelines to do that? Now, the Bible does outline that, but again, are men held to that standard? So I feel you on that. And makes me feel a little awkward going to our closeout. But you know, I'm gonna bring it up anyway. Speaking of staying in the church, Chrisean Rock. Am I saying her name right? Chrisean?
It's Chrisean.
Yes. Chrisean, the girl from Baddies. Was she on Baddies?
Yes.
She used to date Blueface. I was about to call him Bluetooth. Jesus, I'm old. Blueface. So publicly we watched them crash out, honestly, for at least 2 years on social media.
Good 2 years.
After Chrisean gave, birth, she kind of fell out of the public eye for a little bit, which I think was a very good thing. And Blueface is currently incarcerated, so we're not seeing a lot of him. And that has allowed Chrisean a lot of time to get herself together, to clean up her act, and she has turned to God. She's turned to religion. So on Sunday, she was encouraged by Tim Bowman Jr. to perform. She also, while she was on Baddies, she would rap. So she performed a song called Yahweh at the Faith City Church, or that's the name of the choir. And I wanted to play her verse for you guys, and I believe it was very genuine. I felt like it was a cry out and a plea, that she needed help and she wanted to turn her life over to something greater than herself. And I'm glad she chose God and didn't fall deeper into addiction or any of the other things that we kind of saw her experimenting with. So yeah, I wanted to make sure we ended our show on a positive light, whatever your faith may be. Just finding something greater than you is important. And yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Key?
Absolutely. I definitely, I be going hard on the church, but that's because I just feel like there is a higher power. And I feel like when I did attend Baylor, I wanted to get closer to God. And we had like rhetoric and curriculum where we had to go to like chapel for 2 different semesters. We had to take religion in business and ethics in business and stuff, because what people also don't know is like the Enron scandal. When I got to Baylor, they was taking their names off the business schools and power washing that. So a lot of people who were a part of that were Baylor, graduates. And so they then had to start focusing on what does it look like to be good Christians. And I think in just being at Baylor, it made me, and having to study so many different types of religions and beliefs, I think the only thing I got from it was that God forgives. It was like, it is not up for you. Like in every scenario we saw where he, forgave murderers, and it was like, you never could call it. And so I think that was the thing that I found in, in being at Baylor. And I think that's how I try and live my life. I try and be a blessing or a lesson. Hopefully I'm a blessing, but I
But if you
believe in
cross
God.
me, it might be a less. No, I'm sorry.
And I still blessed you because you learned something. You at least learned not to come back over here. But no, I feel like that was the theme in everything. Like God forgave, and like you could not decide. And so that's how I live my life. You never know how he gonna show up. He might show up in an unhoused person. He might show up in an opportunity or in a person that you couldn't stand or was being catty about. And so I just always try and, give people the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, try and be, that godly. It's the God in me. What they say?
Hey, it's the God in me. I know that's right. God can use anybody, truly. So like I said, I was really inspired seeing that. I believe that it was authentic, and I'm happy to see. We were talking about Pastor Marvin Sapp and Creflo Dollar, and these examples of questionable Christianity. I'll word it like that. But to see Tim Bowman Jr. leverage his platform, leverage his church, and allow space for Chrisean and her son to just kind of, like I said, pour their heart out, be restored right in front of us, I feel like. And hopefully it's inspiration to the girls that were following behind her, right? Like it's young women that were influenced by the destructive path that she was leading. So here's just another way. And I'm not saying you have to, follow the exact path that she is, but she's still able to entertain. She's still able to use her talents, but she's doing it in a far more productive manner. So
Absolutely. And I
that.
do, before we end, I do want to touch on, because I don't know if you saw the story about the pastor where the family had like sold everything from Canada and drove all the way down to come to a church. And they kind of, brought him up to the altar and
Oh, I know what you're
everything.
talking about. Yes.
And
Go ahead.
he told his story, and the pastor offered him $50,000, or not even offered, gave him $50,000. And that man tried to refuse and refuse and refuse. And he was like, I'll just, I love to take a job. And he was like, you're not going to block my blessing. I'm going to give you this $50,000 and this job. And so I'm like, people have now, the conversation of tithing and things have come up. And so I just want to shout out that church. I don't know anything else about them, but I'm like, if you're asking for people's money and their time to see it go to causes like that, to help people rebuild their lives, to help people to show, what their faith and how their faith can move for them, I think is always amazing.
I love it. I love that. Yeah. So all churches are not bad, and our commentary was not to say that. So yeah, like I said, just overall, what was funny?
Damage control.
Well, no, but I feel like the overall theme of today's show, period, was just about being a positive force in the community, lifting as we climb, looking out for your brother, giving back. leaving a legacy. All of those things we covered tonight in various stories. So I think that's a great spot to end. Anything else you want to leave us with, Key? Because you stay dropping keys. I know you gave us a few already, but if you had
No, girl, no. I think I'm done today. I appreciate you having our guest today. She was great, and I just appreciate going along this journey with you, girl. If y'all looking for me, y'all know where to find me. Threads and X, maybe not. Instagram, airless HEIR_LESS. Thank you.
All righty. And likewise, I'm a little bit of everywhere as well. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok at BOBBYPEN. And until next time, talk to you later, Austin.
Hey.